This show is brought to you by listeners and viewers like you. EvanX.com Tesla accessories, our TeslaOwnersOnline.com community, and our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/TeslaOwnersOnline. All right, folks, this is it. This is the big one. We've been waiting to do this show for some time now. I mean, all the talk yesterday was literally about Tesla's third quarter numbers. And let's just put it this way, is they are fantastic, but it's not our forte. If you really want to check that stuff out, I do recommend you check out a couple of YouTube channels. Rob Maurer's Tesla Podcast Daily is excellent for that kind of stuff. Or Galileo Russell's Hyperchange. They're excellent at the financial stuff. So let's just say that Tesla's doing extremely well. But Tesla also dropped a huge bomb yesterday, and they finally released the very first beta, very limited beta. We'll talk about this here in a second, about the full self-driving, and of course the Twitterverse just completely exploded. So today I have a couple of very special guests. We have our usual co-hosts with us, Eric and Ian, but I wanted to bring on John from Tesla Owners Silicon Valley Owners Club president, and Tesla Raj, our good friend Raj, who's been on the show many times before, because these guys have been absolutely blowing up the internet today with lots and lots of videos and experience about FSD. So I thought we'd have them on the show to talk about their experiences and how this portends to things in the future. So thanks, guys, for joining us. I know your time is valuable. I know Raj might kick out a little bit earlier, but we have John for some time. We've been struggling a little bit with audio, so I will try and do some post-processing to lift it up a little bit for you guys. But anyways, the content is what matters. So having said that, welcome, guys, to the show. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. So first things first, a little bit of a disclaimer. The FSD has been put out by Tesla. I think you called it an early access FSD beta program. It is not the early access program as normal. There are many people that are in that. This is a very special subset specifically for FSD. So we only know that John has it. So that's why we invited him to come on to talk about what he can. Remember, there are certain things they can and cannot talk about, but I just wanted to get their general impressions about this and just have a casual conversation about this whole thing. So, so John, you have a Model X, right?
Yeah, a 2018 Model X P100D.
Okay.
With obviously the full self-driving hardware 3 MCU2. Mm-hmm. So everything you need to essentially run it. But yeah, that's what I have, and I also have a Model 3 Performance.
Now, you also bought FSD. Now, did your Model X come with the hardware 3 computer, or was that added as part of the FSD program after the fact?
It was added after the fact.
Okay, all right, because people are going to probably ask. So the bottom line, you need the hardware 3 computer, whether you get it with the car or you purchase it as part of FSD, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so this was a software update that happened last night. Can you talk about the version number?
Yeah, it's 2020.40.8.10.
.10. I see.
.10.
Mm-hmm.
So .8 was just bug fixes.
Yeah.
.10 was the FSD beta software update.
Okay.
And
how long did it take to install, or was it very quick?
Just the typical time.
Yeah.
It was, what is it, 30 minutes?
25 minutes, yeah, something like that.
25 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it came. Obviously, I downloaded it first and then installed it. And then obviously I had to put it on hold because I had some other personal things going on. Mm-hmm. But it literally just, installed over the air in 30 minutes.
So I'm just going through your timeline here on Twitter here, and I want to bring up the release notes, and I want to read them verbatim. Just so that everybody understands where we stand with this. So I'll share the screen out here on my. Can I do it this way? I can do it this way. There we go. Okay. Here we go. Full self-driving beta in parenthesis. Full self-driving is an early limited access beta and must be used with additional caution. It may do the wrong thing at the worst time. So you must always keep your hands on the wheel and pay extra attention to the road. Do not become complacent. When full self-driving is enabled, your vehicle will make lane changes off-highway, select forks to follow their navigation route, navigate around other vehicles and objects, and make left and right turns. Your full self-driving in limited beta only if you Use full self-driving in limited beta only if you pay constant attention to the road and be prepared to act immediately upon, especially around blind corners, crossing intersections, and in narrow driving situations. So that is verbatim from the release notes. Obviously, Tesla is saying, please, please, please be extra careful with this. So anyways, I don't know how much the lawyers got involved with that, but anyways.
Elon said that too.
Yeah.
So that's the great thing about it, right? You have to use extreme caution. This is beta, right? This is not the mass software that's going out to everybody. And so you have to keep your hands on the wheel, look at everything that's going on, and even use more caution than you typically drive, because this is beta. And that's the kicker. And again, I'm not even quoting anything other than what you said, but also Elon, very cautious drivers.
Yeah, and I would even caveat that it's probably more early than beta, since if you look at our autopilot is still labeled as beta, yet we all have access to it. And this is like really, really small group of people. So I would almost say like this, it's early beta. It's alpha beta. I don't know.
Yeah, it's bleeding edge, as Elon likes to call it, right?
And not for the record, but who else on Twitter has been posting? There's been one other person, Brandon, who's actually a member who, I know the guy, but there's only been 2 people on social media, and it's been me and this other person. So you want to call it beta, alpha, beta, whatever it is, it's literally a very few people right now.
Okay. So my next question is, what was your experience? I mean, you knew this was coming. You got in the car, you got the software update, you performed it, you saw the release notes, you read it. So at what point did Raj come into this, and what happened? Lead us down. I mean, I could play lots of videos and stuff, but I want to hear it from you guys.
Yeah. So I got hit up yesterday afternoon. Hey, you've been selected. I was like, crazy. And then I immediately thought, who's the best person I know that can shoot video and who's also part of our club leadership. And so I would say I called Raj. That's why he came through. I had some other prior engagements before, but I was just, my mind was blown. I hadn't seen anyone post yet. I know technically it was supposed to go out on Tuesday, but it was just the fact that I was talking to someone about getting enabled when I personally was not ever in the early access program before.
All right. So you were specifically chosen for this subset.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not going to say if it was random or, specific. All I know is that I was selected and I hadn't seen anything yet. So I knew I was probably part of the first couple of people.
Okay.
But I was just, my mouth was like dropped again. I can't put it into words. It's kind of ridiculous because it's a different experience than navigate on autopilot. This is, you are like full self-driving. The opportunity has now opened. The gate has now been opened, right? The mic has been dropped. It's now a possibility. Navigate on autopilot was kind of like, autonomy 2 or 3, whatever they call that, right? But this is, I've had multiple experiences right now. It's driven me from a supercharger to another supercharger. It's driven me from, a park to a supercharger. It's driven me from home to Target. And we're talking like 4 to 5 miles going from city streets, suburbs to freeway, back to city. So it's literally, it's just opened up everything. You have questions and it's like Smart Summit being released. It's only going to get better. And that's the crazy thing. So I made sure to submit as much feedback as I could.
Okay. So your first experience, I mean, we saw the video with you and Raj in the car, and that's, Elon retweeted it and said, ha ha, and got lots and lots and lots of views on that. Was that literally your very first experience with typing in an address and off you went? So genuine reactions, right?
What's crazy about that is, again, this was our very first time doing it. And that is what I think was scary and awesome and amazing at the same time. I mean, Raj can speak to this, but this was literally our first reaction. You can't make that up.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
yeah,
it was just crazy because you don't expect anything. Sorry, the camera angle. You don't expect anything to happen when you're still on a residential street, and to all of a sudden see your dash light up, where it's picking up everything, and then that you can street. That was already impressive, and then just at the end of the court, it making that turn onto another residential street where there are cars on the curb, on the side of the road, and it's still staying to the right side while avoiding those was just like, that was that reaction where I was like, it turns, and I'm just like, are you sure you're going to make, because I've never seen a Tesla nobody's seen a Tesla make a turn. Now, it stays in the lane amazing. It will change lanes awesome. The speed adjustment is great, but making a turn is like maybe like some people might think of like overdoing it, but like, dude, that was shocking.
Yeah, your reaction on that one when it was approaching cars, because you were driving down a residential area, I believe. There are no lane markings. And the other thing too, and I'll try and bring up some screens here. You guys may not be able to hear the audio.
Behind a person.
But let me just bring this up here and I'll explain a little bit what's going on.
Blinker is on. I'll
just turn this down a little bit. That because you have a Model X, obviously you have two screens, and your instrument cluster directly in front of you shows you quite a bit more detail than what we've experienced with autopilot at this point. I think Tesla at this point is and I can't speak to this long term whether they're going to leave this enabled, but it's showing you quite a bit more data. Like you can actually see all the curbs and everything. I thought that was very impressive, and to me, I think one of the reasons they did this, either deliberately or whether they're going to have it long term, of course, is it's very confidence inspiring. You can actually see the car and the computer systems actually reading things. And your reaction was quite funny because you couldn't see the lane markings, but yet it was passing all the cars and it's tagging all the cars. You also did a subsequent video a little bit later where it, let me see here, what was it? You came up to roundabouts, right? Because everybody's asking about roundabouts. Could never do that before. Have you,
with a person.
Exactly.
Yes.
With a person.
Yeah.
But
experience with roundabouts? Do you have roundabouts in your general area or not really?
Yeah, so actually I do. So we have two. So we were using one specifically, but yeah, so this was what's unique maybe in the US is that our roundabouts typically have stop signs.
Okay.
So, there was a person just so happened to be walking. It came to a complete stop. And then essentially went around the roundabout almost perfectly. Literally, again, you have to tag the location you want to go to. So we had to tag somewhere that was a little further past the roundabout, but it pretty much took it and did it seamlessly without, obviously, I didn't have to interact at all. It knew the person was there. It gave enough space and went around it seamlessly. And I didn't even have to worry about getting curb rash. It didn't go into the other lane like I think, back in the day Sparksaman was initially doing, but it handled it like a champ. And again, it was just mind-boggling to be driving in a car that's now taking a roundabout on top of doing, making a left and right turn.
Cool. Now, obviously, the one thing that this does that navigate on autopilot or even autopilot in general couldn't do, of course, was intersections, being able to turn in intersections. What can you tell us about right-hand turns and left-hand turns? What's your experience been with it, with those two things?
It can do it all, right? So we had one case where, at least again, we had two lanes going each way, and then a third lane to make a left. So it even went into that third lane to make the left to go across an intersection. But we literally dealt with today before the call. I mean, there's a reason why Raj is still in transit is because we were literally dealing with, making a right turn and people doing a U-turn right in front of you, right? Yeah. And it literally making a right turn and traffic going by. We dealt with that. So we dealt with all the situations of making a right turn from a suburb to a city street, pretty much. We dealt with like, intersections, even with some divots, like where like parts ways, and it still knew like which way to go. So there wasn't any issues that we had. It literally handled it pretty seamlessly. And again, we had literally no interventions.
Excellent.
It was crazy to see how it was like thinking as it did these things.
Yeah, well, that's
like,
my next question.
John was talking about that intersection we came to. We're going to make a right, and we're looking at the left, and there's total oncoming traffic in different lanes, and then in front of you, people are making U-turns into the side of the street that we need to turn into. And I mean, like, I'm looking here, I'm looking there, and it's thinking, it's pausing, it's taking its time. Obviously, I felt very safe with everything it was doing. When it came to like these kind of scenarios that we did, where it was like, wow, okay, so it's thinking about it, it's not being rash, and it did it, and that was just where it got really impressive.
I'm going to assume that it was following the rules of the road. One of my pet peeves, of course, when you make left-hand turns, that many people take very wide and they go in the opposite lane, which is not allowed. That's very illegal. I'm going to assume that the car did it the correct lane, and when you stay in the left, it stays in the left. Excellent.
Yeah, proper stops.
Yeah, and there was, we dealt with a situation.
Yeah.
What was that, John?
Yeah, we dealt. Yeah, sorry. We dealt with where there was medians in between one side and the other side, and again, it went around.
Oh, excellent.
We did not deal with any issues really at all.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just looking at the videos, and of course, this is probably early days. Does it still show the street lights, changing lights and stuff? Because I was watching some of your videos, and I couldn't quite make that out. Is it still there?
I noticed it.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw them change. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I forget which one it was, but you could definitely see it flicking back and forth. The only thing that was a little confusing was because the graphics are a little bit more, well, I wouldn't say they're more primitive. I mean, they're way more sophisticated. The level of detail you see was crazy. Like, all of the different lines delineating the curves and stuff like that. But some of the stuff was a little fuzzy. Like, in our current version, you see a beautiful representation of the streetlights. They look, you can almost see the little wire they're hanging off of. They look a little bit more melded together. They were sort of jumbling around a bit at some points. So I think they sort of compromised the perfect representation of the lights to focus on the actual ground truth of what's going on. But I could definitely see the lights going back and forth from.
What I took from that is that Tesla's showing you more on this because when you're going around vehicles, it's actually drawing the bounding boxes around them, which is only something that you would normally get out of a straight feed out of the computer. It's sanitized normally on the cars, but they're showing you more of this data, which is
geeking out on it because it's like you're driving a developer car, right? Like, how cool is that? It's like you're part of the dev team. That's what was so cool about it.
That's good, and I like that because it's confidence inspiring. I don't expect the bounding boxes to make it to production at the end of the day, but it's quite. Any other than streets, curbs, and the actual driving line, like it's actually predicting. Did it look like it was predicting corners, like where it was going to, or it's actually showing you where it's going to turn? Right, it draws a line.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything extra that you can add?
Like speed bumps? Were there any other on-the-road obstacles that the vehicle encountered?
I think the big call out that I noticed, and this is not like anything, is that everything's being identified by colors.
I see.
Yeah.
And so the computer is identifying each scenario, and they are coding it whatever way, saying, hey, green is this, purple's this, blue's this, yellow's this. And I noticed that the colors changed too. When I was dealing with, people walking in front of the car, one time it was green, the other time it was yellow. I think those are like the big call outs as far as the visualization. But I think the reality of the visualization right now is it's very early stage. And I think that's the whole point of showing kind of like somewhat of the messiness of it. Because I don't think that's, Franz is not going to allow that to be like the final product. I mean, not that I know what he's thinking. But very much so what you see on like Navigate on autopilot is, it's beautiful. And the vector spaced, bird's eye view is eventually coming. And so as you know, and it's going to be, again, 3D vector spaced. So you can imagine that's going to happen for the FSD full release.
Let's see here. What else can we ask? Oh, Guy, I mean,
I got one.
Go ahead, Ian. Go ahead. Jump in.
I'm dying to know. You just mentioned that you did get it on the freeway a little bit. Since you have a lot of experience with the current system, like EAP on the freeway, did you notice that it does anything different or better in the freeway scenarios?
Sure, I'll share some. So one thing that was interesting was the visualization changes back to the navigate on autopilot when it's on the highway.
Really?
Really.
Ooh.
So when I'm driving from the side, and we went through two huge circles on two different highways. We did two huge like roundabouts or whatever, and we switched highways on one when we were going from one supercharger to the next. It switched from one visualization, where it was obviously what you guys are what you're seeing in some of my videos, but then it would switch back to the navigate on autopilot, and then it switches back.
I see.
So I think that's part of. I mean, I have no insights into this. All I know is this is potentially the rewrite. I don't know if they're rewriting parts of it, other parts of it, but that's only for. But who knows? I have no.
It's just speculation at this point.
Yeah.
Total speculation.
Yeah.
And
All
it
I
may
can say is
be
that's
that.
what happened.
Yeah, and it may be like you guys said, right? Is right now we're seeing the vector-based graphics and the colors, and we're seeing like essentially a developer build because you need to perfect that before you put the pretty UI over it.
Yeah,
and right now, pretty UI is on the highway because we're at a good state there, and this is still beta. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's
No, I
cool
agree with
seeing
you.
it change from like, this
Yeah.
colorful rainbow to like going back to like Serenity and then back to the crazy rainbow.
Cool. Let me think here. I mean, I could show a bunch of videos and stuff. You guys, as I said, because of the nature of our software and the way things work right here, I can flip something over here so that our viewers and listeners can actually see this video. But if you zoom in a little bit,
stop sign.
oh, look
And
at
to
that!
the main road,
It's all
it's
the
going to make
beautiful
another right
colors.
turn. Blinker initiated. Full
Yeah, it was cool
complete
seeing
stop,
just like
not a California
vans and
roll.
semis and
Here we go.
the garbage
People.
cans and
Full right
people and other cars and ones that were stationary. And like John said, it's like we don't know what the colors mean, but it was interesting how some things were purple or yellow or blue or whatever.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Ian, if you have another question, jump in because it's just.
Well, yeah. I'll just geek out some more. I was just blown away with how much information there is. Like you couldn't see it all at once. Like it goes to prove, like how sophisticated this is and how much the potential is there for this to be so much safer because the two human eyeballs trying to track what's going on the screen can only see parts of it. Whereas you understand that, the computer is seeing all of that and it's going, I know where all these things are, and it's juggling, these 67 balls in the air and your eyes are trying to count 2 or 3 of them, It was just
Well, I think it's an interesting perspective from when watching those videos is that humans can interpret data a lot quicker than a computer can for whether it's important or whether it's not important.
It's the decision-making process.
Right.
Yeah.
Computers are essentially like a baby learning its environment and understanding a new language. And the environment that we see with our eyes, as flawed as it can be sometimes, we now are of age that as licensed drivers, whether we're aggressive or conservative drivers, that aside, ideally we do know when, we see in the intersection up ahead, we expect, is there a cyclist? Is there a pedestrian? We know to look for those things as we're approaching intersections. We know when we're about to make a right-hand turn, we're going to decelerate unless we have a green light. But even then, you're still looking for, again, people crossing into the crosswalk. So there's certain natural behaviors that we've come to learn when we first learned to drive with our permits, and of course, seasoned drivers now. Computers are a whole different thing, which is how do you explain to a 2-year-old how driving works and what to look for when you're driving? That's the computer's challenge, is trying to interpret human experience into basically binary bits of data.
I think to your point, and it's important to remember here that, again, this is early stages, but computer AI is progressing so fast now. I mean, the thing is this FSD suite, it's not just the cameras now, because you got 8 cameras around the car. We only drive with 2 eyes, right? 2 eyes, a little bit of ears. But we're dealing with radar. We're dealing with sonar, 8 different cameras. If you train the computer enough, I do believe that eventually that these, if you train it for enough scenarios and you get enough data, and we know that Tesla's getting the data, that it will be better than a human. And you don't have to go very far to witness this, because there's been a lot of AI demos. I mean, you can just do a Google search or a YouTube search to see how much better computers are at playing video games after just a few hours of watching people do it themselves, right? Computers will beat a person any single day. So I think over time, I mean, I'm not making light of this. This is a very complicated, complex problem to solve, but given enough data, I think that they can actually work it in many different scenarios. I know it's a little bit early to talk about this, in the sense that you guys are in California. Winter's coming for us. Snow has a habit of obscuring a lot of stuff. I'm curious to see when we eventually get it, and based on Elon's timeline, of course, Elon time is a real thing. If we do see this, let's say a little wider deployment towards the end of this year, ostensibly here in Canada, providing the regulators allow it, we could probably see this early spring, February, March, somewhere around there. I'm curious to see how well it does in our conditions up here. I mean, FSD, I mean, all we need is a little bit of snow on the front of the car, and traffic where cruise control kind of goes away. But anyways, that's beside the point. I'm curious to see what happens then. But
one thing,
go ahead, John.
Trev, if I could mention, as we saw with Smart Summon, right? Initial launch versus where it's at today. And even we did FSD beta Smart Summon. It is getting better every time, right? First time we did the roundabout, it was pretty good. But the second time we did it like 3 or 4 times, and it got better every time. And so I think that's the big call out. And every time we did it, the scenario changed. And so that's basic AI, in that you feed the system, you feed the beast, the thing's going to pump out better results.
Absolutely.
And so the great thing is you don't need to be a rocket scientist or a crazy engineer to get that. It's just the more you feed a system, the better it's going to get. And that's essentially what was happening.
And I want to go back and just mention one more thing. I mean, remember when Elon had said that LiDAR would eventually be a crutch for a lot of people using LiDAR. And he says, we're going down the hard road. We want to do this with vision. And when I saw all this data coming in, and let's just assume that this is part of the rewrite, and now they're getting the 4th dimensional data, because they're getting spatial awareness now without the use of LiDAR. And Elon was right. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com, that's spelled FEYNLAB, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla, we were meant for each other.
Oh, it completely looks like the LiDAR images that you see in some of the other systems. It's ability to move in real time,
In one of the examples, when John and I were driving, we were stopped at a light, and there was cars around us, and then to the right of us, after the lanes, there was a car wash, and there were people washing cars, and all of that was rendering on the screen. And so you just saw all this happening, and my vision, I mean, my peripheral vision is only so much, but I mean, all of that was being shown on the screen. It was, that's power.
That comes back to the point that I was making, where it's like this system at its peak is not going to miss things. As humans, we're very good with working on what's within our sort of, immediate range of focus. If it's in our immediate field of view, but we got to remember to move our heads. And we're all, the problem with humans is we do forget to do that every so often.
We do get distracted. Computers don't.
The car will never forget. It will always have that super wide field of view. It will always be monitoring these 300 objects. So if one kid at that car wash runs out in the street, the car is seeing it even when you're not. That's, to me, what's incredible about it when you think about the potential for it. It just has to learn what to do, to Eric's point, with that information. But once it knows it, think of how much more safety is going to be. That just takes it up by a factor of 10.
And it'll be interesting. You mentioned inclement weather, especially now for the wintry conditions that a lot of folks north of the Mason-Dixon line will experience, is like I experienced here in Florida, when we have some very humid days or very rainy days. If so much as one camera is obstructed, how do the other cameras then compensate, or the other sensory systems in the vehicle compensate for the loss of one eye, basically, of the vehicle? That's going to be interesting to see as these very controlled studies move forward, because so far we've seen extraordinarily amazing data that John and I know there's one other person who's already has the program. But I mean, when you think about just, if the control group expands to 5 people, 15 people, 30 people in the months to come, and someone is, experiencing a little bit of a light snow flurry. Another person has, very dry desert-like conditions. I mean, there's all these different natural environmental conditions that we want to see. And just, is there a difference among that control group? Where one vehicle has no issues at all with the various weather conditions, and another vehicle has a new advisory that then, just means that, okay, we're just going to hold on to the steering column a little bit tighter, and then, just be mindful of potentially something because this one camera is blocked. Or does the rest of the system say, we gotcha. We have enough data from the other angles we have to sort of fill the space there. This is all going to be very exciting stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that materializes over the next several months.
Now, go ahead, John.
One quick call out, and we can move on. Was that there was even when we did a right turn, it was going from one supercharger essentially to the next. It made a right turn where, from my perspective, it was a blind spot. I could not see out left of me, and I would have taken probably a couple more inches up. And it still made the turn without, kind of where I didn't completely feel comfortable, but it made the turn and it knew. So it's starting to potentially see. I mean, again, 8 cameras is better than 2 pair of eyes, but there's things that it's seeing that I can't even see at this point.
My question kind of goes back to your first experience with it. I mean, having experienced autopilot at this point, and now this early beta of FSD, and Elon had said that it was going to go out to a few people, and it was going to be timid and slow at first, as it should. What's your takeaway from it at this point? Do you feel that it's mechanical, or does it feel more like a human drive, or is it getting a little? I mean, just curious.
I think it's getting better.
Okay.
Right. I think it's, like I said, the first time you do something, the second time it just gets better. So there may be little kinks here and there, but as time and more data is being fed into it. So again, it's definitely not it's definitely not, you can't say it's a baby, because that's kind of what I was initially expecting, to be really honest, was that, especially kind of like navigate on autopilot, a bunch of other things, and how it got better. But that's kind of what I was initially expecting. But again, our very first drive, you saw the reaction. It took me from my house to Target, and I was not expecting that. And I literally had been given a 1-over by the person who signed me up, and that was pretty much it. I read through the notes, and of course, using complete caution, that's all I knew. And literally, you engage it like regular autopilot, and that was it.
I'm glad to hear that it's definitely improving, because my first experience with auto lane change, this is early days, because I had in the Model X when they first enabled it, because it took a long time. I mean, many other cars had lane change before the Model X did, because I had the new computer in it. It was terrible. But after about 3 software updates, man, it just got silky smooth, and it's been silky smooth ever since. So
yeah, and I think go, Raj. It's all you, man.
No, I was just going to say, that's where I was genuinely impressed, because I expected it to be, when you tell me you're giving me something early beta, I expect bugs. I expect it to be a little jerky, or, still be a little iffy. And I know it's not final, but for what it was, for as early it is and as small as the people had it, it was better than anything else that I'd seen that's come out in beta. It felt like, if I had to say what it felt like a kid who's had their permit for a couple months. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to say too is that, because this is full self-driving, again, everything can stand or fall on this, right? And, I think they took and they knew what exactly they were releasing. And so for me, they didn't release a half-baked product. You know,
something of
It's
this caliber
a lot-
can't be released.
Yeah.
it's great caliber. It's definitely, you know, but again, it will get better over time, right? It's beta. It's not the, you know, the full rollout to the full fleet of 1 million plus now, and, you know, the whole China, you know, made in China, all that, all the stuff going out there. So it's, it was a lot better than I thought it would be. It was a lot better than the Navigate on Autopilot rollout. It was, you know, phantom braking, all that other stuff, like all the small little issues. One smart summon thing. I mean, Raj, you can. I won't steal that thunder. You can kind of give the main call out there of like the big update there. People didn't really see a big update. There was, but again, they knew what they were releasing. It was not a, you know, hey, we spent some time with this, but they were very cautious in how and who they released it to.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah.
So you did a thing.
Raj, you want to give the
Smart Summon?
the update on? Like,
Oh, yeah.
what you saw?
Yeah, so Smart Summon, I mean, a lot of people were expecting that Smart Summon has like changed and vastly improved. And I think where it improved on, it's still very cautious. It's still very slow in the parking lot. So don't expect it's just going to like race over to you. And I think that's fair. But one of the biggest things that I disliked about Smart Summon was it did not identify what side of the road to be on. So when it comes to pick you up, it would just like essentially drive towards you and essentially cut across oncoming traffic lane, which was a little ridiculous in a parking lot. And then you just look stupid because now you're trying to jump in your car. But now, because it can essentially identify what side of the road to be on, like it does on residential streets. There's no street markings. There's cars on the side of the road, yet it stays to the right side. It did that when it picked up John. It stayed to the right side. It pulled up right in front of him and stayed there. And that's what I think about. If a valet is coming and picking me up, that's what they would do. And that's what I expect someone to do. And that's what it's doing now. So I think people need to put that in their heads. And I think people are expecting something really ridiculous from Smart Summon. And this was a pretty good improvement.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. That's been a bit of an issue for a lot of people, I believe.
Yep.
Did you get a chance to try any perpendicular parallel parking? I'm going to assume that probably nothing to say about that at this point.
Yeah, no, we personally have not tried it. I think the way you want to see this is meant to go. Raj, I'll let you step in. What was the example you used in the car? Maybe you don't forget, but this is not meant to like, hey, let's just go in a parking lot and see if it'll take it from like my house to the Target parking lot.
That's right. That's right.
Itself. It literally will take you to the destination, and you need to take over when it stops, because it'll stop on the city streets. Not stop, but you need to know, using extreme caution, when you should take it over.
Yeah,
right.
I think the way I remember how I said it was, this takes you from point A to point B, but does not take you from door to door. And there's a big distinction there. Is that like, hey, I want to go to Target, means it's not going to pull into the parking lot and park for you, right? That is not there. But it will take you you're at Target. Just park the car now. You know, it's like, and I think that'll come when, that other, smart parking.
Oh yeah, no doubt. That's good that you made that point, because I think, to the uninitiated that might see these videos, they think, oh, Tesla released a, fully self-driving car. And I know that Alex Roy is going to jump all over this and say, no, they're not full self-driving. We're not there yet, but this is a big step in the right direction, at least for vision-based systems. So yeah, very impressive at this point. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we jump into some questions there, Eric?
Well, I think a lot of the stuff that customers, our listeners and our viewers had submitted via the questions, we covered a great amount of those. So if we're ready to proceed into the next series of questions, a little disclaimer for those of you that are watching this on YouTube or listening to it on your favorite audio devices. If we don't answer your question directly in this next series of questions, it's because it was addressed in this long form discussion we just had. It may have been a very minor inflection point, or it could have been a very large discussion that we just had. But again, if you don't hear your question, it's because we did discuss it in some detail. So you can certainly play this back and try to listen for that information if you didn't hear it the first time. But we'll go ahead and proceed with any questions you guys submitted that maybe weren't talked about yet, or at least maybe we could expand upon in greater detail. And just, again, a forewarning and a reminder, if there is anything that because of the non-disclosure agreement that can't be answered, the guys will certainly let you know. It's nothing personal. It's obviously just because Tesla does make it very restrictive as far as what can and can't be discussed. I just want to remind our listeners of that.
Okay, Raj just indicated that he has to head out. Thank you for joining us, Raj. We will
Thanks,
have you
Raj.
again, and looking forward to more of the videos. Please, Raj did put out an early impressions video on his YouTube channel today, so please go to YouTube and search for Tesla_Raj or just Tesla Raj, and you'll find his video today. And I'm sure there's more coming. So anyways, make sure you go and subscribe to his channel and check it out. So thanks for joining us, Raj. We're just going to continue with John, and we'll see you next time, okay? Have a good evening.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. Anytime, buddy.
Take care.
Okay, so what's our first one, Eric?
All right, so let's start with the first one. Was there any experience with U-turns? You mentioned that there were cars in front of you that were making U-turns, and your vehicle handled it just fine. But did your Model X do any U-turns with FSD?
Yeah. So I did one scenario where it had to make a U-turn, and that's where we were essentially going from the supercharger to the supercharger, and it essentially had to make a right turn and then a U-turn. And again, it was kind of like the roundabout. It did it really well. It did not have any issues. There was 2 lanes on the U-turn, and it went to the far most right one. And so I think, I was really impressed with that.
That's awesome. So Mario asks, were there any new alerts or advisories that came on your screen? I know you mentioned earlier that you pretty much had no interventions from point A to point B, like from home to Target and others. But were there any interventions of any kind other than just once you reached your parking lot and how to park your vehicle?
No, I mean, again, once you, like I said, we said that it's not door to door, it's A to B. So when you got to point B, you needed to take over. It's not going to take you into the parking lot. It did start to take me into the parking lot, but I shut it down, and because I don't need to necessarily know or figure out what's going to happen when it goes to there, because again, you need to know what it is and what it's not, right? Smart summon is, go ahead.
I just wanted to expound on that. Did you notice any difference in the frequency of alerts on the screen? You know, when you have to use autopilot, you keep your hand on the steering wheel. Did you notice any difference, longer, shorter, or anything like that, or about the same?
Yeah, pretty much like the notifications went away. The one thing I do want to call out is similar with Navigate on autopilot, you do have to touch the steering wheel every now and again, but it's less, but it's still there.
Okay, good.
So
good to know that it's still there.
Yeah, you don't get the green light chime. A lot of those notifications just go away.
Okay.
Next question comes from Elliot. He asks, do you think that FSD will allow autopilot to be a bit more aggressive?
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. Do you think that FSD will allow autopilot to be more aggressive?
I have no idea. All I know is that what I will say is that FSD will probably allow autopilot to become better. So I think it partially depends on the owner on whether they want it to be more aggressive. And I think, we currently have that with Mad Max and then chill mode.
Right.
So I think the user can probably define that. But one thing I will say is that FSD should make autopilot a lot better.
Now, I do wonder though, because I know Raj mentioned this. He sort of alluded to the idea that this is like a new novice driver who's on their permit for just a couple of months. Did you find that? And this is my question asking. Did you find that the autopilot experience in its early iterations, with being very cautious and maybe even less aggressive than you or I may drive, and I'm pretty conservative by and large too. Did you find that at least when you first test drove this, that it was that same very cautious, very step-by-step, very methodical, calculated decisions with every move that the vehicle made?
Completely. We dealt with some pretty complicated situations. For example, just basic making a left from my street onto another street, again, within the burbs, it literally would peak out and, kind of look around. We dealt with, cool. Again, the roundabout. We dealt with the, sorry about that. Okay. We dealt with a roundabout, and not only did we deal with a roundabout, but a human was there, going around. And what else did we deal with? We dealt with making a right turn and people making a U-turn in front of me. We made a right turn with cars going by, and it all handled it very well. And again, for beta, it's pretty mind-blowing, as far as where this product is.
Question for you. Given the time frame when this was released for you, because you haven't had it for very long, how is it handling various amounts of traffic, like dense or light traffic? Is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, today we took it. I have not taken it, in traffic. I've taken it down dense streets, but yeah, it definitely used more caution probably now versus I think last night. But I think it's just because there was more going on. There was, it's sensing less stuff, so it's just taking, it's a lot more reactive versus cautiously looking out, letting everybody go through. But again, this is, Elon said it's meant for very cautious drivers, and that's ultimately how this program and this FSD beta program really is.
Well, in order to get regulated, they got to be able to show that it's safer. So, stands to reason. Okay.
So, a general question is going out to all the guys. This is not just the question for John, but and I know Elon alluded to this in the earnings call earlier in the week. But do you think it makes sense for Tesla to sort of unbundle FSD when a owner decides to spring for it, so that either it can be passed on to the next owner should that ownership change hands, or if the owner elects to change their vehicle and wants FSD on the next car? I know Elon said on the call this week during the Q&A session that he's looking into that. They may consider that. But are there any other comments or feedback you guys have relevant to that question from Marcel?
Personally, I don't think they're going to do anything until at least a subscription program comes along. At that point, we'll have to see what it brings. But right now, quite honestly, looking at the numbers, FSD is a cash generating thing for them. So, I don't think. Elon did go onto Twitter today because some people were asking him. Look, you're releasing FSD now to a very limited amount of people, and you want to increase the price on Monday. There's not enough. I think actually, matter of fact, it was Ryan who asked this question. He said, "You normally you give us a little bit more advance notice of this. This is really short notice." And Elon said, "Well, how much notice do you think would be right?" I jumped in and I said, maybe I think it's probably more appropriate to increase the price once it goes out to a more general release rather than the very early beta. That's just my opinion at this point. But again, in the future, once some kind of subscription service comes along, who knows what they'll do?
I part of me agrees with what you guys are saying, both Ryan and yourself, Trevor, but also part of me sort of dissents and says, but there's been price breaks on FSD many a time where even owners like myself could have purchased it for as little as $3,000, right? And, there are a lot of folks, and I've certainly been known on the show to indicate that it's not right now, I should say at the time, last year, it didn't seem like an important expense to spend $3,000 for a product that, again, we don't know what the time frame was. And a year ago, we probably wouldn't have foretold that it'd be in this beta program today. But with that being said, there's been a number of price cuts and a number of deals that could have been had for many a months prior to this. So I understand from their perspective, from Elon and Tesla's perspective, that we've been telling you for the longest time the prices are going to go up. We incrementally kept doing that. Now that it's here, we're not going to just hold back to encourage you to get it. If you hadn't wanted it before, now we've given you a taste. If you really want it, go ahead and get it, because that window is very narrow. But it's narrow now, but it wasn't narrow before. That would be the other side of that argument. I
did notice a noticeable uptick in people purchasing it today. Now that we've actually seen it, there's been quite a few people I've noticed on Twitter who said, "Fine,
ordered it."
Or you throw in the gauntlet. Fine, I'll order it. And I think there's a lot of people that want to, but I mean, let's face it. If they increase the price, let's say on Monday, we're talking $10,000 US. That's $14,000, $15,000 Canadian. That's a hard pill to swallow if you can't bundle it into the loan of your car. I mean, there's a value proposition with FSD, and I think some people are actually seeing, rightfully so, oh, this is a value proposition that I want to get in, but I didn't buy it when I first got it because I was holding off. Now I'm not too sure. Now I see something that interests me. So I understand the financial burden of being able to get this now after the purchase is a real thing. I'm not denying that. But again, I think some of that could be mitigated if they do a subscription service. But again, that's not here today. So, anyways, I have my own opinions about this, and everybody has their own opinion.
It's almost as if autopilot got demoted to basic cable, and now FSD is like the premier programming, right? It's amazing to think about the levels of growth you've seen from very early EAP functionality to then autopilot as we know it now to now this robust, outstanding performance of FSD. And again, we're if you can't really gauge what the percentile is that this is, that the data that it's acquired and how it's performing, because we don't know ultimately what it's going to look like in the end. But let's just say, just for the sake of argument, that it's 85% of where it needs to be for, say, level 4 autonomy. It's astounding what it already can do, and it's been out for 24 hours, essentially, right? But they've been building this and building this and building this for the longest time. And for folks like John to now have access to this, and as more owners, eke into the program, they're providing so much more real-world data that Tesla can only do on its own. So you need this large environment of owners around the globe to test in different markets to really just, as John pointed out earlier, to get more data so that each and every time there's feedback provided for Tesla, it's learning, and the computer is just always learning. That new engine is just going, okay, now I see what that mark was that was in green before, what this is in blue, and it's all in the simulation.
I'm still a firm believer that enhanced autopilot or basic autopilot that include all the cars now is still good for 95% of what people really need. I mean, you need your traffic aware cruise control, and you need your basic auto steer, like lane keeping. That's good enough for most people. FSD, if you really want to get it, I'm talking about the full self-driving. I mean, the auto park thing and the smart summon are two separate things as far as I'm concerned, whether you need that or not. Some would make an argument that some of those features should be pulled out. But it really shows, I mean, the way I look at it as, this full self-driving on city streets now is really a robo-taxi thing. It's not something that I would normally use in the city limits. Great on the highway. That's just my personal experience. Other people have a different opinion, and that's perfectly fine. But I still believe, I mean, I'm glad I bought it with the car. I'm probably not going to get it with the Cybertruck, only because my use case for that is going to be different.
I don't know. Imagine, because it's and poor John, you've been trying to get into the conversation for 5 minutes, but I want to throw one more thing on that. I just got to finish the point is, you need this capability so that even autopilot in its normal state on the highway can do what it's supposed to do. And the ultimate dream is FSD on the highway. For me, my ultimate dream is I want to be able to set it to go to Florida and go to sleep and wake up in the morning and be halfway there. You can't have that unless you have the full FSD suite, even for the highway use case, Trev. Think about it. I mean, if you want to travel in your truck, you're going to want that.
No, and I agree with you 100%. Everybody has a different use case. Would I trust something to go to sleep in the car? Not right now. In the future, maybe. I'm looking at it from a use case, and I've talked about this many times. My purpose of getting a Cybertruck, other than the fact that it's cool and stuff, is that for us, it's going to be a utility vehicle to do camping with, pull a trailer. My experience with the Model X is that as soon as you plug in a trailer, you lose all that autopilot stuff. It's just a safety thing. Now, not to say that FSD won't allow for it in the future. I just don't see it right now. That's why I have 2 reservations. One with FSD, one without. Just to do a price protection thing. But that's just me.
Well, I know John has. I know John's got to go. We certainly appreciate all of his time. Is there any final comments you wanted to add, John, before we let you go for the show?
Yeah, you mind if I'll chime in on what was just being said, and then I'll end with final comments. So anyone that's in the hardware business or, manufacturing business knows the margins are pretty bad, right? So that's where software is huge in order to get those benefits back. So whether you separate it or not, that is where Tesla will unlock the profitability, right? They're doing it through sales credits right now, but that is the future, and this is where things are headed. I got all this stuff. Let's say it's 85% of where it needs to be. Not that I really know where it fully needs to be, but if that's the case, they have literally unlocked. They've opened the gauntlet for what the future is. We all have different use cases, whether Trev needs it, whether Ian needs it, whether Eric needs it. We all are in different life stages and different places. And Trev let's say he may need the trailer to do it every weekend, and Eric may not. I may not. So I think first off, like where it starts, and I alluded to, the software is the most important thing for Tesla's future. And the thing I wanted to kind of like the last kind of comments was look at your geography, right? We have some people in Canada, some people in the US. How are they dealing with, the laws? And I think that will dictate whether or not you should purchase now or later. If I was in the EU, I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you, because it sucks. I'm just going to be real with you. But in the US, I'm buying it today, right? And that's what you saw from a lot of our posts, and that's where things are headed. But if I'm in the EU, I'm probably going to wait. Sure, I'm going to pay more, but you might make more money putting in Tesla stock. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know. But all I do know is, again, depending on your use case, all I do know is that this literally opens up things for the future. And that is what is so exciting about it, why I will pay, $7,000-8,000 a day for it. Not like incremental, but I will do it tomorrow if I had to. Because I literally it's so exciting. So based on I live in the US, based on what I saw myself post, I would buy it. Because again, this means it's closer. Sure, if I was buying a 2013 model, Model S back in the day, nothing's been shown yet, right? And that, without opening up a can of worms, like it is what that kind of is what it is. But based on what I'm seeing today, you have every reason if you're in the US to go buy it. Irrespective of your use case. And so, so those are kind of like my just like closing thoughts.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So John says buy it.
There you go.
I had to fix a leaky pipe today. I'm kind of tight on budget for now. But...
Dude, that's what a home equity line of credit is for. Just
right.
Yes, it fixes everything.
Oh yes.
I'm so deep in the debt with all my expenses between my car and my house that, believe me, if I had to give up a kidney, the hospital would go, "You got anything else?"
Well, I'm looking forward to getting it eventually. I'm not part of EAP or anything like that, so I'm going to be in the crowd of people that get it in a wide release whenever that seems to happen. Ian and I will be in the same boat because geographically we're the same way.
Yeah.
I think in John's case, talking about the EU, autopilot in the EU is pretty nerfed right now, so hopefully that they get some kind of semblance of this in due time. I know regulations are a little tighter over there, so.
Yep. And Elon did say he's gonna wait to, create the higher price until they hear more. Mm-hmm. Right? He responded to Viv on that.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So a little bit of late breaking news for us on that. Well, any closing thoughts? Are we okay, guys? We covered just about everything. I mean, a little.
Now, if I can squeeze in one quick question for John. Elon alluded to in the past that there may be a way with FSD that if you have multiple calendar events synced with your device and you have destinations, addresses inputted for that, have you at least tried from your vehicle if you had a calendar event to see if it can if you get in, if it asks you, hey, I want to go there, you just tap a button and then just takes off? Or has your experience been so far just you go into your map, you input an address, and then the vehicle just takes you there?
Yeah, so right now, because of COVID, I'm working from home, so I haven't even thought of that, but that is a great use case that I need to check out.
So a good idea for a test.
Yeah, exactly.
Put on the list of things to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So hopefully sometime in the near future, maybe we'll see version 11. I mean, there haven't been any allusions to what's going on there. I mean, we know there's a bunch of features that Elon's been talking about as far as things they want to add. So maybe it might coincide maybe later this year with wide release of FSD for a lot of people. Maybe we'll see version 11. I don't know. We'll see. We've been talking about this for some time, but anyhow, I think we'll leave it like that. Because John is our guest, I'll let him go first. Where can people reach you if they want to have a chat with you? I know your DMs are probably turned off right now.
Oh,
on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm following, I think, 280 people, and obviously, you know, yourself being one of them, and Ian as well. But yeah, I had to shut that off before I made the announcement. But yeah, so you can find us at teslasiliconvalley.com if you're located in the Bay Area. We've launched, you know, 2 or 3 clubs outside of our club. Trev actually was a huge part of us becoming a club. We were probably one of the first clubs that started through Twitter, and probably not going to happen today, so we're a unicorn. But either way, TeslaSiliconValley.com or Tesla Owners SV at Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.
Excellent. I always highly recommend, I mean, if you're into cars, you like Teslas, join a physical club. I mean, join the forum too, but I'm saying clubs are awesome. I mean, it'll be really great once COVID is somewhat a little bit more under control so that we can get back into that, because I dearly miss my friends. I have lots of them in the community and stuff. So anyways, Eric, why don't you go next where people can find you if they want to chat with you?
Sure. Thanks so much. And John, thanks so much for being on tonight. And Raj, if you see this, hear this later, thank you also for being here. You guys can find me on Twitter. My handle is ECFix. That's ECFIX. And as you can see at my Chiron down at the corner here, Election Day is coming up. If you haven't already voted, make a plan to vote, whether you vote by mail, vote early, or vote on Election Day, November 3rd. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you follow what regulations and rules are in your area. But again, you can go online. There's tons of resources, vote.org, many others. But please, please, democracy needs you. Vote this year. Thank you.
Ian?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. It's at Ian Pavelko. It's quite simple. The Tesla Owners Online Forum. The handle is Mad Hungarian. Happy to help you out with any technical issues you have, specifically wheels and tires would be something I might be of use to you. And finally, if you're looking for something in the way of Tesla wear, I've got my handy dandy little Evolveware shirts that are still around. You can find those at teespring.com and Mad Hungarian Evolveware. Just search that when you're in the site and you will find them.
Great. Well, I guess that leaves me. First, I want to say thank you, John, for joining us this evening. We'll have you on again. Keep up the great work, and we're looking forward to we're looking forward to seeing more stuff from you guys. Listen, if you want to follow me, you can do it on Twitter. The handle's Tesla Owners Online. Don't forget to check out the forum at TeslaOwnersOnline.com. Best place to talk about Tesla, all kinds of stuff that ways. And also, thank you to our sponsors. That is Evanex and the guys at Fine Lab Ceramic Coatings. I want to thank you for your continued sponsorship and your business. We really appreciate it. That's it for tonight, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys, for watching and listening. We'll see you next time. See you later.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Goodbye, everybody.